Welcome to Tech Brothers with Amir. In this video, we are going to learn about configure a self-hosted IR as proxy for Azure SSIS IR in Azure Data Factory with SSISDB on Azure DB with private endpoint. So this is a kind of complex scenario where you are putting multiple things together. We are putting a SSIS IR, that's what we need, and then we are going to use a self-hosted IR as a proxy, and then our SSIS packages that we need to save, they will be saved on the SSISDB on Azure database with private endpoints. So this is one of the video I will suggest any person like watch end to end. There are multiple reasons because you're going to create a lot of different scenarios and a lot of different problems you are going to solve in this video. So see right here, it's not actually one video, it's almost like 10 videos that we are mixing together. First of all, we are creating the VNET, then we are going to create the subnets, then we are going to create the Azure DB, then we are going to create the VM and install SSMS on it, then we are going to create private endpoints, and then once we do for the private endpoints for Azure SQL DB, then we need to connect to that Azure DB from the VM. So we are going to work on that part. Then and then we are going to create here Azure Data Factory, then another one self-hosted IR, then we are going to create SSIS IR with the self-hosted IR as a proxy and also use the VNET. Now finally we'll be creating SSIS package, deploying to SSISDB, and then we will be testing our SSIS package in the SSISDB and pipeline. So it's going to be lengthy, but think about that, it's going to cover like 10 videos, and I will say maybe 5 to 10% of the entire Azure Data Factory part of it. So once you learn that, the other scenario will get easy for you. So let's start. Now I have my profile here, that's Azure portal, and I have only created the resource group, and this is my subscription. So everything is going to start from scratch. First of all, we are going to create the virtual network. Go right here, virtual network. So if you don't have it here, because I created in last time, so it is still shown in my dashboard. Otherwise you will search for virtual networks and hit create. Now we are going to name some of them according to our some naming convention, so we could remember them. Here is my subscription and here is my resource group. Now what we will name, I'm going to call this guy tbit vnet. That's my main vnet, and then under this vnet we will be creating two more subnets. Okay, hit next, create, and we are not doing anything like IP addresses, security and all that, so we are okay with that, whatever comes as a default. Okay, my VNet is ready. Now let's take a look, and here is our VNet, all good, and this is the address space kind of it is going to get. Now we are going to go to the subnets, and here we will be creating two subnets. One we will be using for a private endpoint in the SQL, and the other one I will be using for the VM tbit, and I'm going to call it VNet, then subnet, and subnet, and then I will call it SQL. So from this subnet we will be using one IP for our private endpoint. Hit save. It's creating the subnet, and next what we need to do, we will be creating another subnet that we will be using for our VNet VM, because I need to create this VM. Why? Because once I enable the private endpoint on Azure SQL DB, then there is no way I can connect to that. So I have to create a VM and use the same VNet, so I can directly connect to the SQL in Azure SQL DB. Okay, so you see right there, this is a default. Okay, this is our SQL, and this is our for the VM. Now these three things are done. That was pretty quick, so we are done with two of them, and next we are going to do create a Azure SQL DB. So that's going to be easy as well. And one thing, just make sure, as the things are easy, you also want to make sure you choose the right kind of resources. Why? Because otherwise you will be paying a lot of money for these resources, and I have done that mistakes in my past. So you don't want to pay a lot of money. So here TechBrothersIT is my resource. Now I'm gonna type the database name. Let's call it a TechBrothersDB. Okay, so that's the name of the database, and I need to create a server. So I need to create a server that I will be using to connect to this database. So I'm going to call this guy Tech Brothers server, and here I will be providing username. In my case it's going to be TB user. So and then next we will be providing the password. I'm going to call it a test123 $, and then I will be using test123 $. Very easy password. Hit OK. Now it's going to be created in East US. But that's what I was talking about in the configuration database. You don't want to do that. I'll have all that large compute and all that. In this case, I would be paying $380. That's too much for me for performing the demos. In my case, I'm going to go for the basic. So now even data max size in 5 GB and all that, I really don't need this whole lot. I'm going to go to the minimum and I will be paying only for $0.99. Hit apply, and now we should be all good. If you see here, I'm not providing any network IPs or using VNets or anything here. I will be creating the private endpoint at the end later on. So in my case, I'm all good for creating a SQL database. You call it Azure SQL database, and the server name for that database. So the process is in the process right now. It should be created quickly. Sometime it take 2 minutes, sometime it take 10 minutes. I have different experiences when I created the Azure SQL database. This is pretty quick, a minute ago, so not bad at all. So we are almost there where our resource is ready. Still it is in the process of creating the database, but I'm okay. I can go to the server here and take a look. In this server, if you want to take a look here, go to firewall and virtual networks. As of now, we have not done anything saying, hey, deny public networks or anything. We can connect from other networks. I can take this server name, go to the overview, and here is my server name. If I copy this and I can go to the on-premises Azure SSMS, and here if I can provide that server name, I can connect to it. Now if I will provide that information, what's going to happen is going to ask me, hey, do you want to use the username and all that? So I have to provide my username and then connect. So I'm going to provide my username here, and then it's going to connect to my Azure SQL DB from my on-prem system. So that's what we don't want in, because we want this to be on the VNet with the private endpoints. Okay, so we don't want this at all. But as of now it is working here, so I just leave this here, and we are going to go to our next step. We have created Azure SQL DB. Now creating our VM and installing SSMS. We'll come back to the private endpoint in the next step. First we will create the VM and then connect from there to our Azure SQL DB. Now go back to your Azure portal, and here we will be creating a virtual machine. So I'm gonna find it virtual machine. I found virtual machine right there. I'm gonna hit create new virtual machine, and now it is asking me tons of things where I need to provide my resource group and name of a virtual machine. I'm gonna call this one Tech Brothers VM. Okay, simple name, and East US is fine. What type of operating system you would like to have it? In my case, Windows 2016 server is fine, and I don't need to use this forever. I'm going to use this for demo and delete it. Now if you go right here, it asks you some vCPU, some memory and all that. I'm fine with that. Now it is asking, hey, what is your username? So in this case TB user is just fine, but I have to provide complex password. It cannot be 4 character or 5 character, so you have to have some strong password here. I'm gonna let this RDP 3389 open because I need to remote to this server. Okay, so once we create this, what we need to do, we need to go to disk, and in the disk I'm going to select the normal standard HDD. And here in the networking, that's very important. You would like to create this in the same VNet where we are going to create the private endpoint. So tbit VNet, and then subnet. If you remember, I have created a separate subnet for that. So this is going to be used only for our VM. We are fine with the rest of configuration, and I'm going to hit create, and it should create our VM. So create. Our VM will be created shortly. Our VM is ready, and let's go to resource, and here I'm going to go to connect and then do the RDP. So once I download the RDP file, what's going to happen, I'm going to double click here, and it's going to open a dialog box here or some windows here, so that I need to just click on that, and then it's going to ask me my username and password. So my username is a TB user, that you guys know that, and this is a complex password I have provided for my virtual machine. It's asking for the certificate, and I said yes, and now it's opening that remote connection. So I'm going to copy from the other machine screen to this screen. Now it's going to take a little bit of time and do the whole thing. It's going to set up my profile first time on this virtual machine, and see that IP address, that's a public IP. So that's how I was able to RDP to this machine. But this virtual machine is on the same VNet that we are going to create the private endpoint for our Azure SQL DB. On this machine, what I need to do, I need to actually download SSMS so I can connect to the my Azure DB. So I'm going to go to local server here, and then I'm going to do one thing. It has IE enhanced security configuration that I need to kind of turn it off. Otherwise, it keep bugging me every time I open IE for the download. So I just did off that. And once it's turned off, I'm going to close this local server. Let's see. Yeah, I can close it right now. So I'm going to go to the IE, and then I'm going to go to the google.com. From there, I need to download the SSMS. Google.com, and download the SSMS. That's what we need to do. It brought me right here, and in this case I'm going to go ahead and download SSMS, and it's going to be 18.9.2. that's the latest one available, so that's good. And now the download should be quick, and once it's downloaded, it's going to take some time on the execution. So I'm going to hit run. See, download is pretty quick right away, and then the installation part takes some time. Install. Meanwhile, our SSMS is installing. We can actually do one thing. One of the thing I would like to tell you, we can go to the CMD and take a look. I'm going to go open a CMD here, and once I open the CMD, and what we can do, we can kind of create our private link as of now while we are waiting for SSMS. Here is my SQL server, and as you guys already know that I can access this server from even any network, and I did that by proving right here. Went to my on-premises SSMS, and I just connected with that. Now what I need to do, I'm in the remote server, and in the remote server, if I will do right here, if I will do ns lookup, what's gonna happen if I will provide the server name, is connecting on the public IP. So you see right there, that's a public IP. Now what I need to do, I need to create the private endpoint, and then once I connect here, it should be connecting with the private endpoint. Now let's minimize this window. Let's go to the Azure portal, and then create the private link, private endpoint. Now we are here in our database server right there, and then we can go to the private endpoint connections, and here I'm going to say create a endpoint. Now you are going to select your subscription and resource group. Next, you will be providing the private endpoint name. So in my case, I'm going to say TBIT PVT, and it's going to be in the East US. Go to the resource, and here it's going to ask you subscription, and then ask you resource type. In my case, and in actually our case, it is SQL server. So I type SQL, and it's bringing that. Now it's asking which resource, and we have only one server right there. And what we need to do next, target sub resource is already selected, SQL server. Hit the configuration, and now in the configuration, make sure you are providing the same VNet what we have there. So in our case, for our VM and for our Azure SQL DB, we are going to use the same VNet. So here, and then in the VNet subnet, I'm going to use TBIT VNET subnet SQL. That's the separate subnet I created for a SQL private endpoint. So I'm going to use that. Now hit next tags, and we should be all good. Let's create. Now hit create again. So our private endpoint will be created. Once our private endpoint will be created, we will have no access to connect to this server from the any public network. If I will try to from my own premises and all that, I will not be able to do it. So that's what we are going to do. That's why we are creating this VM on the same VNet, and so we can connect to it. Okay, so right there, our SSMS is in progress, so that's fine. And now what we are going to do, we are going to go back here, go to portal, and just wait for this private endpoint to be created. Our private endpoint is created for SQL, and now what we can do, we can take a look here. What we need to see right here is a private endpoint and a DNS configuration. So you can see right there, this is the IP assigned to it, and then you can click on the private link there, and you can see some information there. So there are entries, and you can see right there, click on virtual network links. This is one of the thing I had faced issues. This was one couple of times it was not created, and I had to add by myself. So not a big deal if it is added, good. If it is not added, then you're gonna go ahead and add it. So I'm gonna try to find if I can find you this. This is error. So last time when I was working on it, it did not get added itself. So whenever I tried to connect to the SQL, this is the error I was getting. So if that happened with you, you can always go back here and add that, and after that you should be just fine. Now in this case, what we need to do, we need to go to our VM here, and now if I do ns lookup for my SQL database right there, so you guys will notice that it should use the private IP. See right there, it's using private IP because we have created the private link. So before that it was using 40.79 and all that, and now once our private endpoint is created, it's using the private IP. Now we should be all good here, and we are closing here, and from the SSMS what should be happening now. So let me minimize this, and now if I go ahead and minimize this window a little bit here, so I am inside this my machine, and let me do right there. So I don't need this anymore, and let me make this smaller, and let me go all the way here and go to the search, and here is my SQL Server Management Studio. Now if you notice that we can connect to our SQL without any problem. We don't have to provide the user such as Microsoft user login ID and all that. So I'm going to do one thing. I'm going to go back here, and here on my TechBrothersIT server, I'm going to go to the firewall and virtual networks, and I'm going to deny public network access because now my private endpoint is all set. I do not need this anymore, so I should be only connecting from the private networks. So because I have created the private endpoint, and I should be only using this machine or resources that should only connect to the this network, this server on the private endpoints. Now let me go back here, and here I'm going to provide the server name. So let's go to server name, and here is my server name. So I'm going to go to my VM that I just created for remote. So I'm going to provide my Azure server name, and then provide my username and password, and I should, that's good. We are connected with our SQL server from the VM without providing our username and adding the IP to the server and all that, because we are using the private endpoint. So we are all good. Now what we are going to do here, that's let me see on the main part. So we have created the SSM, we have VM, SSMS, we have created the private endpoint, and we are able to use it now. And we connected from the jump host and made sure a private endpoint is working. And you guys have seen that I did the NS lookup, and it returned me the private IP, and also I was able to connect by using SSMS without any authentication beside my username and password for the SQL. So now what we are going to do, we are going to create the Azure Data Factory. Let's go right there, and we are slowly moving in the right direction, and the Data Factory. So Data factory, and in the data factory we will be creating all other objects. So create, and I'm going to call this select the resource group. East US is fine, that's what I want. My other resources are there, so I'm going to call this guy TechBrothers dash ADF. Let's see if it accepts this name. Okay, so what it says, I don't know, maybe underscore. Okay, no, underscore it does not accept, so hyphen is fine. It says it's available, so you see the green part here, and version 2. Okay, git configuration, no. Networking, I'm not using any public or private or anything. I'm going to leave this to public endpoints. So okay, we are going to go ahead and create it, and hit create. So we created Azure Data Factory with a very minimum configuration. We just provided the name and resource group and the subscription. So our Azure Data Factory is in creating process. Pretty quickly it's got created. So I have to go to the next step. Now what we are going to do, we are going to create a self-hosted IR and test it. That's first thing. So why you create a self-hosted IR? Because you need to connect to the on-premises some other network to get some data, and that's the way when you need to get the data from beside your Azure network. So if you need to go to the, maybe you have your own like in my case, I have my SQL server installed on a laptop, or maybe there is another network from where you need to get some data. So that's where you need to create the self-hosted IR. So let's go ahead and do it. So I am on my Azure here. I'm going to go to Data Factory, Azure Data Factory here, go to the studio. Now in the studio we are going to go to the manager. Okay, so we go to manage here, and now we are going to go to the integration runtime and create a new, and we are going to go to the Azure self-hosted. Now we will go to health self-hosted, and we are going to provide this name. So I'm going to call this self-hosted IR, simple. And now we don't have to do anything here. We are going to create and self-hosted IR will be created. Now it's giving us a couple of options. It's given us two options. One, it is telling us, hey, you can click here to launch the express setup for this computer, or you can download and install integration runtime. So in my case, I'm good with both of them because I have the internet access on my laptop, no big deal. I can simply download and install. That's one of the way. Okay, let's go ahead and download and install, because that's what most of you will be doing. So I'm gonna hit the download, and now it's gonna show me different versions of Data Factory available. So if you go to details, it's going to tell you how much size and everything is 5.9, and I'm going to hit download. You have okay, I will do the latest one, and I'm going to hit next, and it should download this pretty quick. So it's asking you, hey, you want to go download to this? I already have a few of them, so maybe instead of okay, fine, 9001, yeah, this is a new one. It's okay. I'm going to hit save. It taken almost 2 minutes to download, and then we should be good to go. Our download is completed, and we are going to click on download completed, and we can click on this folder and show in folder, and I'm going to go ahead and right click here and install. Once I install it here, what's going to happen is going to start this window. I'm going to bring that to here. It open actually on the other server, so I'm going to bring right here, and I can minimize that. So now go to next, and here it say accept the term and license. Yes, I do, and hit next and install. Now it's installing the Microsoft integration runtime setup. Okay, so our setup is completed. Hit finish, and now what we are going to do, we are going to say yes, and it's going to bring this visit here, and then we are going to copy, and then we're going to go back here and provide the key. So I just copy the key, and then I'm providing the key right here. So what we will do here, we will register. It's going to verify, and it's getting our server name and all that. And once it's done, now you can add multiple nodes if you want. In my case, I'm fine with one node. So Microsoft recommend having at least 2 nodes. So in case if one fails, you have another node. So this service is installed on your on-premises VM, and then you will be able to access on-premises resources such as maybe you have a SQL Server, Oracle, or maybe a file share. Then you can get the data from the on-premises to the Azure database by using self-hosted IR. So in this case, I will show you a demo just in a second. Once it is installed, we are gonna do a quick demo here. Now, we are all good here. It tells you you can associate up to 4 physical nodes with self-hosted IR integration runtime. This is enable high availability and scalability, so you can work on this all. And now we are all good. Launch configuration manager, and you can see that we are all good here. Is self-hosted IR is connected, and we can stop the service and we can reconnect if we want, but we don't need to. On the portal side, what we see here, it should be also running. So if I refresh and we see that self-hosted IR is running, I'm going to click on monitor and it's running self-hosted IR. That's a version. How many nodes? One node. And high availability, because I have only one node, so there is no high availability. Linked accounts, queue length and all that. So this is my server, and this is the total RAM or memory available, how much CPU is usage and everything, so you can see right there. Okay, so our self-hosted IR is ready. Now if I need to connect to it to the on-premises and get some data, how I do that? I will go to the pipeline, and here in author, create a pipeline and a new pipeline. Now what I will do, in this case I'm just making a test for you, so I will do copy activity. In the copy activity, go to source, and then I will select a new, and here I will be making a linked service with the SQL server, because I have on-premises SQL server. So look at here, this is my on-premises SQL server. If I run this at the rate server name, this is my server name. So I will go back to my portal, and here I will say link service new, and it asks you, hey, which integration runtime you want to use. In my case, self-hosted IR, because I need to connect to the my on-premises SQL, and I will provide the SQL name. I will provide the database name. I call it ADF. That's one of the database, and it's asking me, hey, what is your username? And I have the same username but different password on the on-premises. So I'm going to go ahead and test connection. So you see that the connection is coming right, almost there. Test successful. That means I am able to get the data from my on-premises SQL to the Azure. So it is asking which table. I can use any table. I'm going to use the DB or test. None. Hit OK. And now I can go ahead and preview data. So this is the same data is going to show us that we have our on-premises. So see, this is my test, and all that. So this is exactly our data coming from this table. So ADF, that's my database, and this is my on-premises SQL. This is installed on my laptop. Okay. So we proves that we are able to get the data from our on-premises to the Azure. So this was one part of that, but that does not stop there. We have to do further things, but we have to create actually SSIS packages that can read the data from on-premises by using self-hosted IR, but run on the Azure. That's why we are creating this guy. So we are saying Azure SSIS IR with self-hosted IR and on the private endpoints. So we are using that. So that's going to be our next task. What we are going to do, create the self-hosted IR that worked, but we need to create SSIS packages that need to run in Azure but get the data from our on-premises SQL server. So we will create SSIS IR with self-hosted IR as proxy and VNET. Let's go to the portal again. This time our integration runtime is going to be new Azure SSIS, lift and shift existing SSIS packages to execute in Azure. Hit continue, and I'm going to call this SSIS IR. Now I'm going to be in East US is fine. I am not interested to have high compute. I'm a poor guy, and my package is going to be very small, so I don't care. But if you have multiple packages and you want to run them in parallel, you might have multiple nodes and let them run like a scale out configuration type. So hit continue. Now create SSIS catalog SSISDB hosted by Azure SQL DB. This is or create a managed instance to create your SSIS projects, packages, environment, and execution. In my case, I already have the Azure SQL database. Remember that we have created and we've been actually connected with that. That's the guy. So we have that. So we are going to create our SSISDB here, and right now there is nothing under the integration services catalog. So I am connected to this by using the VM on the same VNet. Okay, so let me go back. So we are going to select this because we would like to upload our SSIS packages to the SSISDB that is on our Azure SQL DB. So click right there. Now select your subscription region, and it asks can you catalog database server endpoint. So in our case is TechBrothers. That's the same server we have created. Now it is asking, hey, what is the username? So I'm gonna say tbuser, and password is the favorite password that I told you guys, test123 $. Now the next fun part starts. We are not going to be worried about this part because you can leave this as it is. We have other videos on this. So let's go to next. And we are going to find something that's important for us. How many jobs you want to run in parallel? 2 is fine. And then we already have select the VNet of SSIS integration runtime to join, allow ADF to create certain network resources. So I'm going to create use that. So select my subscription, and here's my VNet. Remember tbit VNet and subnet. So we are going to use the SQL subnet that we created for our private endpoint. So we are all good here. And another one we want to do, use self-hosted integration runtime as proxy for your Azure SSIS integration runtime, because we need to read the data from our on-premises. So we will create SSIS package that will use SSIS IR, but to get to our on-premises, it need self-hosted IR. So select the self-hosted IR, SSIR, and then it's saying, hey, staging storage link service. We don't have that. Why? Because when you are going to get the data from the on-premises by using data flow task, it need to get the data and load into some temporary blob storage. So we have to provide that. I'm going to go here and hit new. So it's going to ask me, hey, where you would like to create that and all that. I do not have actually storage. So I'm going to go back here, go to my portal, and I'm going to say storage account. So in the storage account, we are going to call this guy. So we select our resource group, and I'm going to call it the TechBrothersIT storage. Okay, very quick and easy name. Rest of that we will leave as it is though. So we are not doing a whole lot here, and just create our storage is created, and we are all good here. We don't have to do anything here. We are going to go back. So this is our storage. We can create multiple containers here, but I'm going to leave this guy as it is. And then this is where our folders will be created. Those temp folders I'm talking about, when it is going to read the data from our on-premises and load to this staging area here, and finally load to the Azure. So right here, remember that we were creating a link service. So let me cancel back. Here we selected our self-hosted integration runtime. Now it is asking staging storage link service. So we have to create that. We don't have it. Create new, and now it's asking me, I'm going to call this one LNK, and then self-hosted IR. So we will remember that this is what we have used. Here, leave this as it is. Remember that don't use self-hosted IR here. You are going to use auto-resolve integration time here, runtime here. That's the one you are going to be using. Select your subscription, select your storage account, refresh. See, it came up right here, and now we are going to hit test connection. So our linked service is created for that storage. Now that connection is made. Now we can, it is selected here, and it is asking you, hey, in the storage path, your staging path, leave it blank to use a default container. So if you want to do something, let's say you want to create another container here, you can. So in my case, if I would like to say, oh, SSIS temp storage container, you know, something like that. So I can do that, and just copy this guy here, create. Now this container is created, and that's where all the other folders will be created while we execute our SSIS packages with data flow. So I'm going to provide that path anyways. Validate VNet. That looks good. Green is always good here. And now I'm going to hit continue. You see right there, that's the configuration. Now you can read through the configuration, and that makes sense. If it does make sense, you are gonna be saying, oh okay, it does make sense, and create a. Now you can go and get your coffee or tea or whatever you want, because it takes around 40 minutes to create the whole process. It's going to create our SSIS IR right here. That's what we are going to see. And then it's see right there, it says starting, but it takes plenty of time. So nothing to worry. You can go chill out and come back later. And it also is going to create, as we have provided this, this is a server where we would like to create our SSISDB. It's going to create the SSISDB right here. So once it's done, it's going to create that catalog here, so we can deploy our packages and run them. Meanwhile, it is working. One thing I can do, I can go ahead and create our SSIS packages. So let this guy run, and I go to the Visual Studio, and in the Visual Studio, what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and create a new project. Go right here, new project, and I have integration runtime, and in my case, I'm going to call it SSIS IR, self-hosted IR test. Okay. So that's my project name, and I'm gonna hit save. No. Now in this case, this project is created. I'm gonna right click here, and I'm gonna convert to the target server 2017. Click right there. Sorry, it's opening on another screen. Okay, so here, and I'm gonna convert to this 2017. That's actually that's done, and now I have the package. Now in this package, I can do multiple things here. So now I can read the data from here and put to the Azure, or I can actually read the data from the my on-premises and load to on-premises as well. So different tests can be done. So I'm gonna first do one test. I'm gonna right click here, rename, and I'm gonna call this PKG, and I'm going to call data flow. Okay, that's one of the tests I'm gonna do. So I will be using data flow here. Bring the data flow here, and then once you bring the data flow here, you have to make a connection. So I'm gonna make a connection here. Sorry, double click. Let's go to the, I should use the OLEDB source, and in the OLEDB source, what you're gonna do, double click here and create a new connection. Now it's already there. I can use it. I can delete all and create a new one. Now once I create a new one, I have to provide the server name. So remember that this is a server name. I can use it, and this is going to make connection with my on-premises SQL. Right here, provide that. Now I have the username and password that I can provide, tb user, and my password is that I'm gonna do it. Okay, so this is an ADF. Okay, that's the database I have, and hit OK, hit OK, hit OK, and now I can do drop down, or I can do select query, my choice, and I'm gonna go for test. Here go to columns, click right here. Your all sources ready. Let me take you back for a second, and here we tell you this is the on-premises SQL where I have a database called ADF, and this is the table. So let me do one thing. I'm going to read and write to the same table. That's possible for our testing purpose. I'm going to bring a OLEDB destination here, and now I'm going to connect this guy, and I'm going to use the same table. So but we will be calling this package on the Azure, right? So we are going to deploy that package there, and then we will work from there. All right, so we should be all good here. And one thing we want to do, you have this go to the connection, and here you are going to say connect by proxy true. So this is very important. As you are going to deploy this package to the Azure SSIS IR, and you are going to use the self-hosted IR as a proxy, you need to set this property to true. So we are all set here. We are gonna go right there, go to the properties here, copy this path, and let me open File Explorer, and in the File Explorer I'm gonna do right there, and once it's open it, just paste that there, and now we go to the location. Here you see that I have this DTExec and all that. Let me go back here. And see right there, there is nothing has created actually. So because I did not build my project, so I need to build that. Once I build it, I should see more what you call the folders. One of the folders is called bin folder. I'm gonna go to bin, go to deployment, and that's where my ispack is. What is ispack? Ispack is a file that contain all the SSIS packages. That's what it is. So now what I'm gonna do, I'm going to take this ispack to our virtual machine that we have created. But as of now, our SSISDB is not ready here, or integration services catalog is not ready, so it's okay. I'm just gonna copy and paste it there. So while let SSISDB SSIS IR work, and once it's ready, then I can work on other things. Let me just paste it there on the desktop. Right there. So it's ready for deployment, but our SSIS DB is not ready yet. So I'm waiting for that. So if we can refresh here, I don't think so you're gonna see in that quick because it remember, it take a whole lot of time. It take around 40 minutes to do it. Let me go to your portal, and here you can see it is still in the process of starting up. So you can see right there 6 minutes has gone. So I'm gonna go drink some water, come back. By the time it will be 40 minutes, and we will work on next steps. Now our SSIS IR is running, and let me see how much time it took. So if you see right here, it took almost 29 minutes to get it done. Not bad, it's alright. So we have SSIS IR running. Let's click on that monitor, and here we can see the status is running. Okay, then type is SSIS Azure SSIS, and it's in East US. The node size is using is a 2 core with the some 8 GB RAM and all that. So number of current nodes 1, and if SSISDB is that's hosting on this server, remember that's where we created the private endpoint, and that's where our SSISDB is there. So now is it using proxy staging? Yes, it is using proxy right there, and that's the staging blob it is going to use. So now if you have a validating VNET subnet, that's what it is. So it was using VNET, our TBIT VNet, and in the subnet it was using TBIT VNet subnet SQL. So if we want to test some connection, we can always do that, and that's the node information for our this guy right there. So that's the name of it. Now we should be all good here. We are going to go to the our VM, and you can call it jump host or whatever you want to call it, and here we are connected with our SQL. That's where we created the private endpoint for this SQL. Now we are going to refresh, and our SSISDB should be there. See right there, that's where our SSISDB there, all the table and everything is there. Now I'm going to click on the integration services catalog and refresh. Now once I refresh, I should be seeing the SSISDB catalog there. Right now there is no folder, no project or anything. I can right click here and create a folder. Let's create a folder called the TechBrothersIT packages. So I am going to call it the TBIT packages. So we are all good here. Now if you remember that while we were working on this, I told you we have copied our ispack on the desktop. See right there, and this has a package that is reading the data from my on-premises and writing the data to the on-premises as well. Same table as tbvnet test. So that's okay. I'm gonna right click here and deploy my package, actually project. So go to the projects under this folder, right click here and say deploy project. Now what's gonna happen is gonna ask you, hey, where is your ispack project deployment file? That's what ispack is. Okay, browse to it, and in our case it's on the desktop. So right there, right here, and hit next. Oh, okay, failed to decrypt and encrypt XML node. Verify that the project was created by the same user. Project loads will attempt to continue without the encryption information. That's fine. So let me see if it throws some error. I might go and say do not encrypt sensitive data. So in this case, SSIS in a SQL Server, yes, that's provide the name of the our Azure SQL DB and server, and here our authentication is the SQL Server TB user, and test 1 2 3 $, that's our password. I'm going to connect. Now it's saying some problem with the user, so because the typing could be the problem, and I'm going to connect again. Okay, this time it's connected successfully. Now see, it already have selected the folder, and that's where it is going to provide upload our project. Hit next and deploy. Our project is deployed successfully. Now what we can do here, we can go ahead and run our SSIS package. So I'm going to go all the way here and execute our SSIS package. So let me just minimize this guy and go to the local and see right there. I just want to see that how many files it has, how many records it has. 192. If it does run successfully from the Azure SSISDB, it should multiply with 2. It's reading the same records and then writing to the same table. That's fine. Let's go to the our VM, right click here and go to the, let me go actually to the properties first, or configuration. So I'm going to go to configuration here, and I would like to do one thing first. That's going to be configuration, and here is connect by proxy. That's my connection manager. So I'm going to click right there, go right here, and see it is the default value is by default value is the connect from the package, yes, and by proxy, correct. So I don't have to do anything here. If it's false, then set to the true. Hit OK. Now right click here and say execute. We should be just fine. We do not have anything else to provide here. We might actually, because remember that there is a one password we are using in TB when we are making a connection. So in case we have to provide that, but that's okay. Let's see if it has saved the password, and we don't have to do that. So the validation is completed. That's good news. And eventually what's happening is running. So data flows execution phase is beginning. I'm very actually impressed. We did not hit any error. Sometimes you do hit some errors and you have to take care of them. So in this case, let's see what's happening now. So it's running fine. Meanwhile, this is running. I'm going to take you some logs files and we take a look right there. So yes, we are using data flow. So what we are going to do, we are going to go to the right here. That's you will go to C program data and SSIS telemetry, and SSIS telemetry. Here you have seen that there is this one folder is created, but I'm more interested in execution logs. So even on the back end, you guys can see that my package failed, but that's okay. I'm going to take a look at what exactly went wrong. Here is the log that is created there. So there are 5 files, and that's every time you're going to run, these files will be created. So double click here, and now we are going to see a few things here. If you see right here, a couple of things I can notice right here is saying these are confusing actually, some of them. So it's saying connection proxy, that's false, and actually we have set to the true, and I don't know what else. So that's pretty much it. We are getting here is saying connection proxy is set to is equal to false, and initial catalog is fine, TB user, all those things looks good, but it did fail. It's all right. So let's open the other log and take a look. Here we are going to see some more details. These are error occurred. So login failed with user TB, and I believe the password was not provided correctly. So when we were executing this package, because we did not save the password in the package configuration or anything, that's where we needed to provide the password, and that's why it's saying login failed. So I'm going to go back here and take a look on the execution report and see right there. I'm also seeing the same type of stuff. I'm seeing that hey, you can go to program data, SSIS telemetry, and see right there is a log file, and you should see that, and it tells you, hey, your login is failed. See right there, login failed for TB user. So no big deal. And let me go back here and go to execution again, and this time I'm going to go to the execution manager here and not just set this value. So I'm going to go ahead and set this value true. So just make sure by myself it's set to true, and also I'm going to provide the password. So I'm going to provide the password here. Now this is a good, and the rest of the things are taken care. And yes, execute the package. First time we failed. Now we are trying second time, and as if you guys remember, I was telling you I was very surprised and actually very happy when the package was going smoothly and running, and no error was happening. I said maybe everything is working just great, but there is always something comes up, and you have to take care of it. So this was one of them. So we took care of two things. One, connect by proxy on the connection manager, we set to the true again, and then second, we provided the password. If you are using your packages, what happen? I will always suggest you for your parameters such as password, username, and connection strings. You might want to use some parameters and have the value set to the according to the environment. But in my case, I'm very not taking care of that. It's a simple package, and finally my package is completed successfully. Remember that we had 192 records before we executed this package. See right there, 192. I ran this query before executing my package. If I rerun this query, it should be double the amount. So it is 384 records. Because I'm reading from the same table and writing to the same table, but it is on my on-premises. But I'm calling this SSIS package from the Azure. So you guys notice that. Let's do the same test. Our package is deployed here. Now let's call from the pipeline. Go to the portal here, and then go to the data factory here. And in the data factory, what we are going to do, we are going to see right here. See, we have Azure SSIS and self-hosted running. These two should be running. So when you run your package, it should use these both services. Now we are going to go to the author here and create a new pipeline. Actually, I'm a very big fan of these type of features, what's available. So you can combine two different networks, kind of get the data from the on-premises or different network to the Azure. So that's really great. I'm going to name this guy data flow, and that's our test. And now what's going to happen here, I'm going to say execute SSIS package. And if you guys remember that where the SSIS package is saved, it is saved on the SSISDB that is on our Azure DB right here. See, that's one part. So your all the SSIS packages are going to be saved on the Azure, and they will be called on the Azure, but they will be still able to get the data from the on-premises by using self-hosted IR. So it's a combination of SSIS IR plus self-hosted IR. Also, we are using the private endpoints for our for our Azure SQL DB. So we know that is safe. Nobody can access this server out of the VNet, right? So we are good here. Let's go back and let's talk and more work. Go to settings here and select the SSIS IR. When I'm selecting the SSIS IR, I am actually thinking to call two services together because the SSIS IR is configured to use the self-hosted IR as a proxy. Okay, so where is my package? SSISDB, that's correct. So I'm gonna click right there. Yeah, refresh. And now this SSIS IR knows that where the SQL server is because we configured it. So it's going to go right there and get the folders for us. tbvnet is a folder, and that's our folder. If you guys remember right here, go to remote, and every time I'm doing it, it's going to go to the next another computer. So I'm going to just put it here. See, that's where our folder is right there, right? So it knows that. Now I'm going to minimize it. Go to the project, so SSIS IR test, and then I need to select the package. In my case, package name is data flow. Okay, so environment, I do not have any setup for the environment on all that, so I can't really provide any values here, but it's a good idea, like you have dev, QA, prod and all that, and that should be just working fine for you. Now you can enable some login here if you want to do that. In my case, I'm fine. So now go to the SSIS parameters. We do not have any parameter. Go to connection managers, and in the connection managers, you see that this is a connect by proxy. So that's one of the things you want to set to true. If in case it is set to false, so we are all good here. And now we do the property override, and we are going to do all that check if there is anything you need to do, and I have already provided the password here, so we should be good. And now we are gonna go right there and execute. once we hit the debug, it's going to call that SSIS package and execute it from the pipeline. Now if you go back here on the our SSISDB here, and you go to the packages and say reports and standard reports, all execution, you are gonna see the package has started. See right there. So you can always come here and take a look if your pipelines are running the packages. So now it is running. So I'm gonna minimize this, go back here, it's in progress. Here on the pipelines, you are not going to see whole lot details. So package execution reports are on the SSISDB. So this VM that we created, you can call it jump start or something, or jump host, sorry, not jump start, you will call it jump host, and that's where you're gonna go always and connect and see your reports. So see, it's working, and it is again saying that hey, I have some problem with the login again. So maybe the password we have to provide in the pipeline again. So let's go back here, and it's still in progress right here. Let's refresh. So it should be failing here too soon. Finally it failed with error, and I don't suggest going on this all the troubleshoot guide and all that. Try to go in the middle error right there and see what happened now. So it is saying that hey, your password failed or something like that, could not acquire the connection, and I'm trying to find login location and see what it is. It says right there somewhere. Let's see what we have there. Okay, right here, login failed for user, right? So that it means when some login is failed, it means there is some problem with the username or password. So that's fine. I'm gonna go back here, go to right here, settings, and go to parameters and connections, and here I'm gonna provide the password. Okay. So here you're going to provide the password, and now you're all good. And now what you're going to do, you're going to go to debug again, and then you're going to execute. Now this time you can see that the fourth one was failed, the fifth one is the successful. So I did loaded all those records there. So there was for 349 records, and now so you can see that our pipeline is completed successfully. Now this test is great, and I think you can see right some things here. So see, it is telling you it is using two self-hosted IR. It is using two integration types. So one is the SSIS IR, and then using SSIS IR self-hosted integration runtime with it. So that's how it is. Now if I go back to my right here, if I go back here, and you can see that now the records are double. So this is how you are going to create your SSIS packages, and then you are going to deploy that. I will create more videos on that, how to create SSIS packages, transfer the data between on-premises and Azure, and tons of other scenarios. But for now, you learned that how to set up the entire system, and then create the SSIS packages, deploy that, and finally execute them from the SSISDB or the pipeline. So thank you very much, and I will suggest you watch this video and make some notes, because I had some issues, and I'm gonna take you guys a couple of things. That one of the things I want to tell you, there is one. Let me open that link. And maybe I can guide you a few things right there. So let me open right here. So integration runtime with self-hosted IR Azure Data Factory. Okay, so we type that, and once we go there, I will suggest you to go over this document right there. Let me find out. I'm still finding out. Okay, this is the link. So you go to this link and configure a self-hosted IR as a proxy for Azure SSIS IR here. That's the kind of, it will show you all those details, and you can take a look. But remember, if you are using OLEDB, Execute SQL, or execute task, you have to always say execute on proxy true true true, that you need to do that. One of the other thing I missed, I have the problem. So with, if you have Visual Studio 2017 or something, you need to download the standard or 19 even. You download this Visual Studio with this, so it will enable SSIS package to use proxy. So I was not able to see this property before with my Visual Studio till I did not install this part. And the other thing I would like to tell you that you need to do is there is a some distribution. Okay, TLS 1.2 can be another problem. Your machine should have TLS 1.2 enabled. So if your machine is doesn't have that, sometime that create problem. And one more thing I want to talk about that. Let me see real quick. Yeah, so sometime what happen, this service, if this service does not have permission, you need to add that multiple places, like adjust memory code, and then you have to do other such as a login as service and all that on the VM where your self-hosted IR is running. So if you ask me where it is, so if I go right here, go to services. So if I go to services here, what's going to happen, I'm going to go to the integration runtime here. See this service, if you see, double click here and go right here, that's the account. This has to become the part of those policies, what it is saying in the document. So I recommend you do that, because sometime I have seen the problems here. Also download the drivers, whatever you needed. So these are different drivers for OLEDB and all that's available, so you can download them. And that's pretty much it. You will be all good. So I will suggest you watch it and read this document, and then go from there. Thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe my channel, and I will see you guys in the next video.